All right, let's do this. 1, 2, 1, 2. Welcome. As you can see, you've come in at the most exciting part of the FL Studio process, and that is freezing arrangements. Oy, oy, oy. Definitely not the sexiest part of what we're doing, but it's necessary, especially when one's laptop gets to a stage where there's only about 40 gigs left. So we are waiting right now. But welcome. Hope you're well watching back. All right, buddy. Cats are settling. Today, we're looking at the Discord server challenge. Over, under 5, under, over 5. Not quite sure how some author named it. But nonetheless, bada boom, here we are. So the idea is that if you are usually writing short tracks, you would end up in this challenge writing a really long track. And if you usually write really long tracks, you try to make a really shorter track. It's all about limitations and getting out of one's comfort zone. That's the idea, essentially. Flatten track. And yeah, so obviously, well, not obviously, I tend to make quite longer songs, 5, 6, 7. I think the longest track I've made is about 20 minutes. So I've tried to keep this one under 2, right? So under 2. So it comes in at the moment at 84 BPM. It comes in around about, yeah, well, 155 and a bit. So as close to under 2 as you can get, right? And the idea is that I want to kind of have it as an exercise in confining and controlling structure. So how does structure play into it? How do you still get flow, and how do you create a notion of purpose, I suppose, purpose and storytelling in such a confined space? Do we have the normal builds, tension, and release? Is that still a convention that we still can live with because it's so short? If so, how? How does that go down? And yeah, the idea is, if the traditional way doesn't work, or traditional? Traditional in the sense of EDM and modern day EDM, I suppose, bass music and stuff like that. Like stuff that I'm currently making, right? As far as my myopic experience of music takes. How do you create other forms of structure, right? So right now we're going to explore getting a drop and then thickening out into a build, which will then accelerate and crash out. And that's the idea. It's an exercise in that. So I'm going to stop rabbiting, and you're going to have a listen, I suppose, if you're there. All right. Fair enough. Fair enough. So that's what we got. It's about 2 minutes, 2 minutes long. Has some form of a progression melody. I've kind of fleshed out kind of somewhat of a structure to how it should be. Because it makes the most sense to my brain. I'm sure you could just start with this explosion, which then drops out, but this is an exercise in coming from one space and creating, I suppose. Um, so I've identified a drop after 12 bars for some reason. Why 12? Why did I choose 12? Okay, yeah. Because it's kind of like a 12 bar blues because everything is blues. That makes a lot of sense. Everything is blues. Of course, everything is blues. We're just going to call that the uh, crest raise. Yeah, raise to crest, I suppose. It's not like a build, but it's a thickening agent. So, here we go. So 12th, 13th bar is what I'm calling as a drop. So what I'm doing is essentially going back 4, and that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going to start it. Right. So the rule of 4. Right. It's quite nice in that regard. The notion of what can you do every 4 bars to then not make it not be as obviously loopy. Right. Many of the problems that we get into early on is we get stuck in that loop. Right. And a way that I've found that works quite nicely is changing every 4 bars or so, right? So like not and it doesn't have to always be adding something. You can take something away, but there's a small change every 4, and you can add layers, take things away. But generally speaking, that cycle goes, right? And then you build up from that. So if it's a small thing every 4, you get a big thing every 8, right? So if we go back 4 more, right, to bar 5, and we say we create this and we say this is like the beginning of the loop, right? Let's do that properly. Loop begins, right? Our journey is going from here all the way to here. Essentially the whole thing. The journey is going that way. So that's the big spiral, it's the big cycle, but then you can get further in and have these little pieces of ear candy to keep things fresh and kind of keep things going. You could then in theory have a change every 2 bars, every 1 bar, etc., etc. But I mean, let's face it, nobody got time for that shit. So yeah, it just makes sense. It's nice, you know. And you also want to feel we like a certain piece of repetition. We like a certain amount of repetition. So I suppose what I'm saying is, for me at least, every 8 bars, the 4/8 progression is one that works really well for balancing the notion of repetition of a sound that we like, and then repetition of something that we like, but then having enough variance that we don't get bored. Because these days we all have, everyone's got ADHD, really, basically. So our attention span is shot because corporations, it's TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, ironically, are just taking our attention away from us, so we can't concentrate on what's within. Anyway, enough ramblings of a madman. Let us continue. So let's put in we don't want a big crash, right? For this beginning thing, for this crest. We don't really want to, we're coming this raise to crest, right? We don't want something massive because then that would make the drop less intense and less satisfying in that regard, right? So you just need a transition, you need something. Now, if you're fancy and you can afford plugins to do it for you, you get things like Transient from Baby Audio, right? Which is great. $50, bang, done. But you don't learn anything, I suppose. Which is why I come to Vital, because Vital is amazing. Razor. Amazing and slow sometimes, but amazing nonetheless. Let's put this back, shall we? Riser. Yeah, so like, let's do white noise riser. Fuck it. Let's move this out. So we can just create this transition. So it comes up, it comes to the top, it comes to the peak, and then just kind of fizzles out into nothing. But it's enough of an idea of just moving to somewhere new, right? It's quite cool. So for example, if I bring back the key, you can hear it. If I open it up, see, wavelength comes up. And this dissipates into nothing, right? It's there and it goes. It doesn't make too much of a statement, but it's there, right? Just simple enough, right, in that regard. But for this instance, it might be a bit long. I think for Intervoidal, I was doing a lot of short, long edge rises, right? But we ain't got time for that because of the self-imposed limitation in order to try and make me a better producer. So we put this here, so it comes in. Okay, so it's about 4 bars. So if we create a MIDI clip, Control Shift M or Command Shift M if you're an Apple human user. Not there's anything wrong with that, except everything. I'm in a talkative mood today. We had a good ADSN. It was lovely to speak to Paul. Such an awesome human being. Great music. FCC just makes great music. He's a great human being as well. Such a good person. What key are we in? I have no fucking clue what key we're in. What's going on? Bass. It's all about bass. G. Probably. Could be. Then it might not be. Let's find a G. Kind of what we're going for, but generally speaking, it's probably a bit too much low end. Yeah, look at all that low end. We don't need any of that. Yeah, we just do that above 1K. That works for me. Now, reverb's always good on these kind of things. And the great thing about this, because it's just an effect that I don't think you need Valhalla or anything big. Stock is cool for this because it's low, what's the phrase? Zero latency, essentially, which is really useful. And because it's just noise in it. I'm sure, you can if you want to. I've just never seen a point. We'll bounce that down for now. Hey, that. Cool. So now you can see we've got a frozen track here. So you see the kind of peak come in. And we just created a transition in that way, which is quite nice. Hey, all right, buddy. So yeah, so that kind of gets us into the drop, which is quite nicely. And then we kind of go into a build. And then we want to accelerate that build. And essentially we want to crash out at the end, right? So let's put these together. Not quite sure why it didn't, but it doesn't really matter. I can just conjoin that, right? And then we take these over. And we want to put them, if we want that to crash out, right? So let's have a listen. A bit sooner. So I'm immediately going against the grain. It's kind of nice. It's kind of pushed forward. It's kind of pushing the drop forward in that sense. This one, it kind of peaks with it and it introduces everything quite nicely. But this second one, it's almost like the sound, you're anticipating the sound and kind of coming through. I don't know. For now, I reckon that might be because there's no beat behind it, but I want to get into that in a mo. So for now, we'll put it back where it kind of like should be, right? So like you've got, again, we start the build of 8 and you've got your block of 4, a mini ear candy something, which then goes into the big kind of drop, right? If the drop, well, in this case, a drop out or drop out, I called it a crash out there for some reason. Maybe that was where my mental health was the other day, but here. Anyway, yeah, so if this is kind of extenuating the drop, this would be the other side of that. So for now, let's keep it. I might be wrong. So anyway, let's come back to this, right? So we want to do a build, right? So that's kind of the start. Ring that out. I might put a few like crashes in there, for example, which again we'll come to. Nothing massive, but we'll come back to that in a sec. Maybe we'll stick with it. Decisions, don't overthink it. Just go for it. Let's call this a transient or a riser. Transient. That goes in there. Okay, just for model purposes, I suppose. Just find a crash. Any old crash. Samples. I'm glad you can't hear some of these. It's too much. Maybe a splash. Maybe a splash would be better. Yeah, sure. Like it's nothing too big. All right. So like this ear candy that I'm talking about, this kind of like halfway point, this like little spat, it can just be something that wasn't there before. It doesn't have to be a mini transient, right? Here we're creating a transient because there's like a big envelopment, so to speak, right? But you don't necessarily need that off the bat. You don't necessarily need that. The loop begins and there's just a drum beat that comes in and then you can just have a thing. So for example, right? cymbals coming in. Sure. Here, for example, I might experiment with something a bit Valhalla-y because it's good at creating stuff that wasn't there before. If that makes sense. Oh, you keep going. You keep going. Let's get rid of you for now. Oh, cool. So yeah, it creates it for a lot nicer. And really, that sound kind of goes almost a beat and a half. So yeah, before I get lost in the sonics, right? Now, you want to have a thickening agent right here about here. Right? It's what I might call a thickening agent, where it's we have that piece of ear candy that signifies, ooh, something different is happening, right? But if it goes back to the same thing, it's not really. It's obviously ear candy, right? Just obviously, it's like, oh, okay, and it's gone again. You're back to the same thing, not the same cycle, loop. And I've found as well that if you do a riser coming through, um, and this is like two stepping stones, right? Which is great and it's fine, but it's also kind of we need to kind of create that gap between the two. So we're building a staircase to each level as opposed to jumping from one to the other and just hoping for the best, right? Just a thickening agent. So maybe a pad or a drone in something. What note is going on up here at this point? So this is where the bass comes in. I've already kind of gone along those lines. So this is a G1 again. So yeah, so the bass is coming in. Let's have a low mid coming through, and let's do. You know what? Let's do drift because don't know drift that much. I don't really know drift very well. I've not really used it, but we are going to make it a pad. Would it be a pulse? I don't know. Probably not. So C, D, E, F, G. Idea. Okay, so you've got like a small arc coming through, but yeah, so that creates that bridge. So there is a thickening agent. It doesn't have to be it can be a pad, could be a lead, could be whatever you want, as long as it fits. But there's just this notion of something new is entering, but not so much that it could be considered a new part, if that makes sense. It's there, but it's not there. It's just it fills out the mix a little bit, but it doesn't want to distract you from what's going on in the main idea. It's not to distract you from the fact that something is building and there's anticipation coming, right? So Yeah, that works quite nicely because that ARP is there, but it's not there. So if we're just gonna take the MIDI, we're just gonna go put it down here, and just gonna keep that bad boy running. And then this is all G1, G2. Really, yeah, G2 is probably better. G3. A little bit of sound design on that, so it's a bit dry. So we're going to bring in some reverb. Probably just use stock again. Don't really need anything too big. It's just to kind of create some. Let's use Bliss. Fuck it. Bliss make great plugins. Love Bliss. They've been absolutely wonderful with us on Audionautic. Been great working with them. They've just sent us the multi-band compressor actually as a beta. So we're going to be trying that out in the next couple of weeks and trying something new and playing that. A multi-band compressor is pretty cool because I think they're usually really expensive plugins, right? Or relatively expensive plugins for what they are. At least in my experience, I could be wrong. But yeah, without getting too distracted, essentially they make really good plugins. And I don't know the reverb very well. I tend to use Valhalla or stock, so it's going to work quite nicely. Well, if we've got a transform pad, we just have to LFO the crap out of that, don't we? You're just begging for an LFO, aren't you? 6-pitch LFO. Slink LFO. Let's put that in there for now. I like sync, but yeah, I didn't think about that. Slink are cool. Also quite CPU heavy. Take a minute to load. There we go. Maybe on this occasion that wasn't the best of shouts, but we're going to map it anyway. Transform. Where are you? There you go. I sense we're going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but bear with me. I just want to put a tiny bit delay on that. It's a little bit glitchy. I like that. Let's grit it up. Let's grit it up. A little bit glitchy. I like it. Sorry, we're getting a little bit distracted, but Okay, well, we're creating a thickening agent. I need something now to fill up the low mids. Well, that's still going. That's cool. We need something to fill up the low mids, which makes sense because I was thinking while I was playing this through that really there should be another one here as well. Like this should be a down filter. Do I have any down filters? I've got loads of down filters. Must have. Launch tick. Good old launch tick. Oi, Stevie. Oi, that's my. No, that's my yoga. No. Good boy. Thank you. Yeah, it's fine. That'll do. Launch tick is. It's a really long one, but that's fine. Launch tick, great kid. One of the kids at my school. He makes music under launch tick. Very cool bass dubstep stuff right now. So anyway, he just said, "Here, samples." So all right, I'll be doing well. I'll be doing well. No, no, come on, buddy. So we need a thickening agent. A little again, yeah, just something in the low mids this time. Why are you freezing on me? Yeah, it's better. Yeah, let's just save that just in case. We still need something in the low mids, and the question is whether you get a pad and knock it down, or whether you get a. What would that be? That'd just be a G, wouldn't it? Or whether you get a bass and knock it out, or smash it up. Or going with all the wrong analogies today, but you catch my drift, right? So we're just going to make the MIDI first. Just going to make the MIDI first. Just get rid of that. We don't need any of this MIDI. Just need this MIDI. And we just need to extend it, really. For now, it will become that later. It's fine. Let's go back to drift. Again, drift is cool. Apparently, don't know it much, but why are you not coming up? Yeah, synth on screen. That's a nice little preset. Let's play around with that. Not like that at all. No, not yoga. Just been doing some stretches. Just been doing some stretches. There's that thing I'm trying to do that thing and I want to get out of bed, just do some stretching and just move, start moving. I've been sluggish. So I'm trying. Not doing a very good job. But didn't want to duplicate that. It's there. So I can't really excuse myself if it's just standing there. Or what idiot would put a yoga mat down and proceed to walk over it for a week without even admitting its existence? What idiot would do that? Me, definitely. This could work. If it works, it'll bring me to something worth mentioning. Yeah, that works. So that brings me to an interesting kind of idea, right? So you can, this is a 4-bar loop, right? Right, with this guy here. 4 bars. it's kind of a 4-bar-ish kind of thing. Onto basically putting different length loops on top of each other is a way to kind of break that cycle. Also, in my experience at least, I do need more reverb. I can't tell if I'm too in it and that doesn't work. You let me know. I can't tell right now. And now I'm enough okay with it that it acts as a thickening agent. Whether or not harmonically it makes sense yet, I'm not too sure of, and I'll have to get back to it. Let's order this up a little bit. So you got 2 thickening agents, right? So let's put orange. Can't have orange. That's just not gonna work. This guy is high. So whether or not you agree or disagree with the formation of the chordation, the idea is that there's a sense of progression in these places, right? So you've got this drop, and just before that drop, you have something to signify that something is going down. And then before that, you might have something just to shake it up from the intro in this particular example. So you've got this idea of this stacking layers and stacking things up on the way they go until you hit the full thing. So if we take it from... second bass. My audio nautic buddies would laugh at this point because we're going to need more bass. We currently only have one bass, and that's just unacceptable. We're going to have to put it in. We won't put it in yet, but we will. We'll put it in. For the drop, it will become thicker on all fronts. The highs will come in more, but also the lows as well. There's an opening, an envelope, so to speak. Tina, darling. Tina. Okay, just gonna let Tina out. Give me a sec. Come on, darling. There you go. Oh, crap. Okay. I'll just keep that D going, why not? Okay, all right, okay, all right. I got sidetracked a little bit, but this is kind of like a new lead line. So leave that for now. Anyway, right. So where are we at with tea? Nearly empty. And where are we at with time? Makes sense. 54 minutes. So let's try and have a look. So we've got that thickening agent. We've now got the progression of the track. We want to do that build, right? So let's bring these drums. What are these drums doing? So we just listened to the drums, right? So we got the main beat going into something that we feel should accelerate or get more, and then accelerates and finally crashes out. So we got a total of 12 bars, right? Okay. Nothing that breaks the bank. Okay, so I made it kind of drum and bass. All right. Don't know what you're doing, but I love it. Yeah, fine, trap hats. Okay. So it's like a lighter kick drum, right? So suppose what jungle. Anyway, so obviously kick, snare tend to work together but separately, right? So da 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 or da 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 da. They tend to operate against each other, right? But and that leads to that repetition that we like, and we want to kind of switch that up a little bit, all right? We want to create tension that relaxes us. The da 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 da. The on off like beat of the beat relaxes us because we can kind of it's a rhythm that we can sink our brain into. Um, so build up wants us to break us out. That it wants to create that tension. It wants to remove our sense of relaxation. Right? That's the way I see that. I think I've said that a lot this evening. Anyway, I like to look at it from a case of what is the kick doing first and foremost. So what is the kick? So if we take our kicks, if we listen to what our kicks are doing, which is down here, these two loops. Now, technically, it's 4 on the floor, right? Because you've got this loop doing this 4 on the floor beat. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you've got this guy not doing that. So you got those two kicks, right? But those two kicks are very different, and when they're together, it doesn't really push that 4 on the floor sound. Because of the quietness of that of this guy here, number 12, it's quite faint and it's quite high. And when put together with this, that 4 on the floor kind of becomes a ghost note. So it's kind of you don't really hear it as a 4 on the floor, right? Which is nice because that keeps that beat, that keeps that on-off vibe that we're going for, right? But again, so we want to get out of that now. So the best way I found to do this, if we just create a new audio track. Oh, you right? Oi, what's what are you guys all about, eh? What are you guys all about? It's because they're hungry. That's what it is. All right, so we just need to find a kick, right? And we want to create that 4 on the floor, right? 'Cause a good start is a 4 on the floor. Let's go into our samples, get a kick, get quite a nice kick. Drum and bass kick, why not? Let's lean into the drum and bass vibe. So if we do that, and then we create that 4 on the floor. We haven't done that very well, have we? Because it's on every bar. So if we turn that into a quarter, then we get that. Move those bad boys together. I'm sure you can do this a lot quicker in 12 these days. 3, 4, all right? Yeah. And you could have a really long. I have a feeling I'm at the stage where I'm kind of like overextending my build-ups, right? That's 4 of 4, so that's 16, right? So that's which is fine, right? The idea is then that you want to halve that. You want to halve that to create that tension. So it's sort of disrupted our understanding of the sound and of the beat and of the loop. But it's got to progress, right? So we're just going to speed that up. So we're just going to take that. We'll come back to this. We're going to consolidate. Cool. So now we've got 4. And then we're going to divide it by 2. Dividing it by 2. There we go. So small. Divided by 2 creates that tension, right? Because now suddenly we've got 4 of that. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. It's kind of simple. Then so it's the same amount, but that it's halved. It's double speed, right? So we get the same amount coming through, but suddenly there's a bit more progression to it, right? So let's do that one more time. Let's duplicate that. Let's take that. Let's consolidate them. And let's divide them in half again. Excuse me, sir. And then if you wanted to, take that one more time. Divide that in 2. Do that again. And then, okay, so jury's still out in my experimentation, but I mean, this is an overtly long build-up, right? But I've been seeing more of that in things like color bass and in future bass. I've been seeing a lot more, like it's just disgustingly cut off and disgustingly chopped. So yeah, you could do it if you wanted to. Let's see how this feels. That kind of methodical, yeah. Yeah, so it creates that tension, keeps that progress, sorry, coming through. I suppose it's process as well now. What would happen if, because I've got 4 of these, and technically, mathematically, this should be divided by 2. And then this should be put in there. And then that goes over, that should be divided by 2. But yeah, you can't. So yeah, fine. All right, well then, fine. We'll just do that. That's fine. We'll just go with that. So then if you put that in context with the rest of the track, with the music, sorry, it becomes this kind of spiral which gets quicker and quicker and quicker, and then eventually it comes into oblivion. Basically, the way I see it is like the Milky Way and Andromeda coming closer together. I think it's Andromeda. Can't remember. They're coming together, and gravity's pulling them together, right? And then they're just coming, and they're just spinning. It's kind of the vibe we're going for, right? So we have that. And you can hear that the kick itself is coming in underneath the rest of the beat. So it doesn't disrupt the beat. You don't want it to disrupt the beat so much. But you want it to add to the beat, but keep that going through, right? So yeah. So if you wanted to, so that's, we'll kind of call that the build up, right? We'll call that the build kick. And if you wanted to, you could take that as a sample from your existing beat. I just chose to put another one on top. I like to do that. Doesn't really matter if you want to. If you want to take it from somewhere else, totally fair. Okay, so now coming back to that boom, on, off, right? One of the disruptions that we can make to cause progression, to cause tension, is by syncing the snare and the kick together, right? So if you imagine it, the kick drum and the snare drum are just banging at the same time as opposed to off each other. It's a good way of doing it, right? So in theory, if you want to, you can take the snare and you can take a snare of any kind that you like, and you can create the same thing with the snare, right? It's 4, it's 2 beats. Let's move this guy around. Let's do that. Oops, too many, but that's okay. We're gonna consolidate these. Consolidate is just easier. You don't have to. You can piece them all in. I just find it a lot easier to do that, and then divide by 2. Do the same thing, divide by 2. Do the same thing. And this is where it gets a bit mucky because I can't remember what I did. Divide by 2. Divide by 2. I'll do it. Now you might not want this. You might not. I don't always. I think I've seen it again. EDM a lot, dubstep a lot. They kind of sync the bass, the kick drum and the snare drum together. They kind of sync it. See it a lot in future bass. See it a lot in drum and bass. The build-ups. And I have to down tempo. I don't tend to do it. It's just all about the kick and then the riser and the transition that comes through. But you can if you want to see how this sounds. Does feel a bit rushed in this particular instance, so maybe I don't have this one, or I won't have it with the snare, but we'll see how it pans out, right? But nonetheless, you can see them kind of moving together. So if you were to play them together, in this instance, maybe we just sync them like this. And then you might let that sink in a little bit. We're getting towards an hour and 10, so I'm going to wrap it up for a little bit. But you get the gist of where we're coming at. It's a bigger topic. So I take everything that we've seen from there. We looked at risers before at the beginning. I would add more risers because this thickness has got to be thicker, so to speak, right? So, this might be a tonal riser, right? So we had a white noise riser before. Maybe for whatever reason, shits and gigs, maybe you want like a tonal riser, a subtle tone, which is like a sine wave or an oscillator of some description, which then it rises with the music, right? So let's go back to our riser bank. Square wave, because squares are cool. This is an oxymoron, really, if you think about it, but I love it. So we want our G. Come on, bro. Do you hear that? want it to kind of come in here, and then and be the biggest it can be at the drop. So Control Shift M. Let's find the G. Let's just legato that. Because it's 8, right? So come back to our bars. We come back to Vital itself. The LFO, this particular LFO is working on a frequency of every 8 bars, right? So this could create something nice and long for you if you wanted it to. You just have to keep that rolling. So we just need to double that in length. Do that right? My bad. Let's make that. Ready? Obviously, it's too loud, but okay. So you can see that we've got the build up itself, the kicks and the snares coming through, so that builds up, and then we've got a tonal counterpart essentially, and we've got a tonal counterpart that kind of runs with it. So as the rhythm is building, there's this sense of tension being increasing in the tonality. And I've chosen G4, I believe, just because it feels right. Just feels right to do G4. G4? Yeah, G4 just feels right. Could be something else. If you wanted to do G2, G1, G1 might not work, but you want the sense of starting from something, but it could do. Yeah. And then yeah, so it builds up to here. So then you have a few a busload of crashes that come through. If you've got one crash here for a small little piece of ear candy, we might have an even couple of bigger crashes, which we might start stacking our crashes, for example. So if we come here, let's take yeah, why not? And then that's quite a short, technically quite a short one. So we find a long one. Yeah, fine. It's called a boring crash, but yeah. You might have a down sweep as well, right? It's all about creating those cushions. So it's essentially creating that cushion of you build them up, you kind of guide them up, and then you slowly just kind of plop them back down on their cloud. So if we go back into our samples, impacts, probably not. But why not? Yeah, I think I have a couple here actually. I mean, it could be even. So, for example, as you can see here, right, I've got the sweep up, which I've reversed to create this down sweep. I've got accompanied with another down sweep and then a cymbal and then this weird electronic thing. So, like, for example, if we just enable the effects, you've essentially got that build of tension and then that explosion, a cataclysmic where it just implodes on itself and then it kind of dissipates back out and lulls you back down again. So, which is, yeah, obviously much more exciting. But if we listen to the whole thing now, yeah, so you can kind of see, at least I think, at least, you can kind of see where the tension is and where the progression is and how the story has a beginning, somewhat of a middle, and an end, albeit very short. That's the idea, at least. So, yeah, and so builds, and they can really work like that. Excuse me, sir. Anyway, so yeah, that's what I've kind of found out in this kind of way. This is more traditional. Um, the idea after that, I suppose, would be to fuck with that and to okay, so you've got the kick and the snare creating that tension and that release. How can you create it with synthesizers, for example? Does it need to necessarily speed up? Does it need? Can it slow down instead? I don't know. These are questions maybe are for your own exploration or for exploration down the line. I've got to have this in by next Monday, so I'm going to stick on this particular occasion with the traditional senses of builds and drops because that's just kind of that's what the study was for. But it'd be interesting to see if there's any other way of creating that. Is there if that can be done through samples or if that can be done through I don't know the stretching of a sample in that regard. I don't know. Let me know if this has been helpful to you. Let me know. It's definitely been helpful for myself getting it into the brain a bit better. And hopefully there's someone out there who's learning to make electronic music and wants to know about the basics, the very basics. Let's face it, it's not nothing spectacular going on here. Of music reduction. So yeah, I hope you found it useful. And if you want to get involved, there's 7 days left. There's the Audionautic Discord server challenge. So if you want to get in on that, head across to Audionautic and find out more there. All right. Enjoy your evening. Thank you for hanging around. Let me know